Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Nationals podcast. Joining us today is Matt Weyrich of NBC Sports Washington. Matt, how are you? Have you recovered from yesterday? I know you were at the ballpark. Have you recovered
I
from
think
a
so.
crazy day?
Got a good night's sleep last night, which was good, but it was a long day, filled with a lot of emotion from the national side, from the players' side, from fan side. So I would imagine a lot of people are pretty emotionally drained coming into today.
And let's not forget the media too. I mean, you all have been tracking the story for months. You know what I mean? A lot of y'all covering the team for years, but like tracking the story for months. I mean, it's pretty exhausting, and it finally hits its conclusion. The dust kind of settles, and it's like, all right, everybody kind of has to pick themselves back up in a way.
Oh yeah, I mean this was a long time coming. I think from when we kind of found out that he was on the block in early June to now, things happened quickly in terms of a trade coming together. But certainly took a lot of work to get to this point from everybody involved. So definitely glad to be on the other side of it now and to now kind of see what this new look team is going to do for these last 2 months.
So what was the vibe like at the ballpark yesterday? You were there at the ballpark. Obviously, we heard from Mike Rizzo, Dave Martinez, addressed the media after the game as he does. What was kind of the vibe that you were just getting? And it was like kind of that post-trade deadline haze, because the Nationals didn't move as many guys as actually we thought they were going to move. What was kind of that vibe like at the park?
Yeah, I think that it was kind of a little bit of shock from in the clubhouse and players, things like that. When we arrived in the clubhouse at 3:00, the trade had already been agreed upon in principle. That was before we knew that Luke Voit was going to be in there, but
Right.
It had been pretty much decided that Soto and Bell have been traded, so they had already come and gone from Nationals Park at that point. And the players, a lot of them were just talking about it's a business, but at the same time, like, I knew these guys. Notably Alcides Escobar, Eric Fetty, Sean Doolittle all kind of talked about how, they had relationships with these players, and it certainly hurts to have to lose a teammate like that. So it was emotional, no doubt. I mean, Davey choked up in the press conference at multiple points. Mike Rizzo, talked about how it was tear-filled goodbye for him, tear-filled goodbye for Soto. The player that they've had since he was 16 years old. It's never easy to say goodbye to somebody that you've grown so close with over the years and done so much with. Rizzo was wearing his World Series ring and a World Series shirt, as he did last year at the press conference when he announced the Max Scherzer and Trey Turner trade. This is kind of his MO is that, I'm doing this to remind myself of what we're doing here and how we're going to get back. So he was, I would use the word defiant in a lot of ways as well.
So I think it's really interesting you brought that up, because I saw that, and this is not smooth that we've seen before. It actually reminds me of college football move Bobby Petrino wore. I think it was like his Cotton Bowl hat after he had the motorcycle incident, infamous motorcycle incident there. I think there is some frustration. I'm not going to say necessarily about the trade. I actually think it's it's a fair package, it's a good trade, all that kind of stuff. I think there is rightfully fan frustration about how did we get here, right? Watching Bryce Harper walk away is a different calculated move when you trade Juan Soto away. Those are two really different things that are happening there. Obviously, both result in generational talents leaving the Nationals. What is your sense of that appraisal of the situation? Because he can wear the World Series ring and the shirt, and that is true. But everything that's transpired since winning the World Series, I mean, really, none of that's really gone that well. Sure, Kyle Schwarber was pretty good. But they ended up having to trade him, right? Josh Bell has been really good. They ended up having to trade him. So it's not like they're getting good players, but they're not getting enough good players is kind of the problem. And so really, they aren't pulling the right strings. To me, I understand the defiant move of the shirt and the ring, but that feels really distant. And I think there is a disconnect, to be fair, now between those two things happening. It doesn't feel like they're retooling anymore. It's obviously a rebuild. So your kind of thought on that symbolism, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree with you. There's a bit of a disconnect there in that, fans are frustrated with Rizzo and Rizzo is kind of frustrated with being frustrated with. I think that, he feels he has earned a couple of years to turn this franchise around. He did it, as he said many times, from 2009 to 2012 when he took over, a 3-year process of turning a 100-loss team into a sustained contender. And he says he can do it again. And it seems that he doesn't have the faith of a lot of fans, at least very outspoken fans on social media and, others that I've talked to offline, things like that. The sense is that fans are frustrated that they ended up here in the first place, but it is kind of true that it's hard to avoid getting to this point. As Ryan Zimmerman put it in his press conference ahead of his jersey retirement ceremony, everybody does it unless you're the Dodgers. It's not the norm to, be able to contend for 15, 20 years.
Right.
And never really have to go through a downturn. Even the Yankees had to sell at a trade deadline a couple of years ago, back in 2016. So, this is something that, fans obviously are not going to love seeing. It's the team going through these years of struggle here. But it's something that Rizzo is touted as part of the plan and part of the championship path that this organization needs to take to get back to that contender status. I think that there are, though, a lot of fans who wish that trading Juan Soto didn't have to be part of it.
Yeah, and to be fair to Mike Rizzo, I mean, he went on, Junkies Radio this morning doing his radio head, and he said, look, the negotiations were pretty much one way. It was the Nationals making offers, the Nationals being swatted away, and it kind of circles back to what we talked about. Like, Scott Boras is determined to take Juan Soto to free agency at this point. I know it's far away and that could change, but that's the sense I'm getting. Do you agree with that, Matt? I mean, it's obviously his calling card, but like, they're going to see really how much they can get. And I'm not sure anybody's getting a hometown discount at all.
No, I mean, if the Nationals really wanted to extend Juan Soto, I think that they needed to pay market rate, and market rate for a player of Soto's caliber, when taking into account that he's going to make around 50, 60 million the next 2 years in arbitration, it was a lot higher than what they offered. 440 million over 15 years. It just didn't match up in that AAV. And Soto, while he might not be able to hit Max Scherzer's average annual value of 43.3 million, which is the record, he'll certainly set a total guarantee record with his next contract, which this offer did, but also be at a much higher AAV than the 29.3 the Nationals were trying to get him to agree to. So, they weren't getting hometown discount. There was the ownership issue as well. Soto didn't know what team he was really going to be signing with. So an extension this year was never going to happen. It just did not. The timelines for the two parties, the Nationals and Juan Soto, just really didn't align to a point where a marriage for long-term really seemed like it was going to happen.
Yeah, and the one thing I've been saying too is, like, going back to the team part, it didn't make much sense for a long-term marriage. I mean, think about the Nationals. Like, their team is they're so needy. They need so much. I mean, they need help in the outfield, at third, at short, at second, at first. Catcher's kind of the only position where they got, one guy, and they've got one guy there, really, to be honest, at this point in time, in Keibert Ruiz. I mean, they need starting pitching help. They need everything. And Juan Soto, you would have been paying him a lot of money for what, right? To what end would you be paying him? Because even with Josh Bell, even with Juan Soto, those two guys performing somewhat well, I mean, Josh Bell really performing well, team wasn't very good at all. And, no guarantee Josh Bell would have been around. Like, they had a lot of needs to address. And this trade, I mean, you kind of touch them all, right? You get an infielder, a couple outfielders, starting pitcher too. I mean, this was, they have so many needs to where it really just didn't match up. It didn't make sense, especially with him swatting away offers, for them to hang on to him any longer than they had. It was time to maximize value.
So I'm firmly in the camp of you should do everything you can to lock up a player of Soto's caliber.
Right.
I think that there is always a way to build around a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
You can it might take a little longer to do it because you aren't addressing so many needs at once, and you need drafts and international signing periods and trades in order to accumulate that talent. But for a player of Soto's caliber, for him to be so young, to have such an endearing impact on the fan base, the community, just an all-around great person, great player. It's the kind of player you want to have in your
Mhm.
organization for their entire career. Now, on the flip side, the Nationals, as you said, had a lot of holes that they needed to address. And if you are going to trade Soto, I think now is the time to do it. And then if any team was going to trade a player like Soto, it was the Nationals, because their farm system is so depleted and they don't have much talent, double A or higher. And that's what was the one thing that kind of stood out to me in this whole deal. If we want to start breaking down
Yeah.
the players they got and everything, Abrams and Gore were the only two players above high A that they acquired. I mean, Luke Voigt, obviously, but I don't think he really factors in here from a, retool standpoint.
Right.
Abrams and Gore were the only two players that were above high A. And so the Nationals double A and triple A teams, which really have been the most depleted on their farm system this year, are still depleted as of today. And so while Mike Rizzo says that this accelerates their timeline here, I'm not 100% convinced, just because they didn't really get the players to accelerate their timeline. If they were a little bit more advanced, then you can make the case of, okay, then maybe they get 3 or 4 guys that they didn't have before in the majors in the next year or so, and you sign guys in free agency, and all of a sudden in 2 years, you could, squint and see a contending team. As of right now, they're going to need guys like Robert Hassel and James Wood to advance much more quickly, maybe, than we would usually expect. And I don't know if that's a realistic expectation, and maybe not even one that Nationals actually have.
Yeah, I don't think it's one that they're going to have. I mean, I think this thing's going to take some time. You think about Carter Kieboom, like that's the guy they were hopefully banking on the sidelines right now. And look, there's questions about how fast will Luis Garcia come along? Obviously, looked great last night, right? I mean, he had a really nice night last night, and we could see that in 2020. That was, there was definitely something there with Luis, and they had something cooking there. And then obviously Keibert Ruiz has shown a lot of promise. But yeah, you're right about, I mean, their pitching it's going to be really rough for a while, right? They're going to, that's the one part too. They're going to have to hit on a lot of those guys. Like, they have to have Gore be good. You need to decide he's on the right. We think he's on the right track. Obviously, he's had some rough outings recently. They're going to have to hit on a lot of these guys, but I don't think this accelerated any kind of rebuild. Obviously, it is a step back, for sure. Well, I mean, the guys that are in A, I heard a lot about Wood. I heard a lot of people really liked him. There seems to be some momentum behind him as potentially. I know Hassel's the top prospect that you're getting, because he's the only guy. Obviously Abrams and Gore I've classed out of being called prospects, although they're still relatively young in their major league experience. Who is the guy you're most excited to see? For me, it's Wood, because I've just heard a bunch about him already.
I think that there's a lot of reason to get excited about several of these players. I mean, Abrams and Gore were consensus top 100 prospects going into their rookie seasons. Robert Hassel III is a tooled up guy, someone who the Nationals think can stick in center field, which is something that they don't have at the top of their farm system right now. So that's exciting. Gore, Abrams, and Hassel, 3 of the Padres' last 5 first-round picks, 2017, 20, and 21 were the 3 first-round picks. So that's, a high caliber talent. I mean, the Nationals really got like 2 drafts worth of talent in this trade just alone, which is just kind of crazy to think about. Maybe even 3, just from, the Nationals track record of churning out prospects per draft. I mean, this is revolutionary for their farm system. Wood is like 6'7", amazing speed. He kind of reminds me of Elijah Green's skill set. So, that's something I don't know if he'll necessarily stick in center. He might end up being more of a corner outfielder. He's even bigger than Green, which is funny because I was talking to Green next to Juan Soto, and like he was making Soto look small. So I can't imagine what Green is going to, what Wood is going to do once he arrives. But the player I think that Mike Rizzo seemed most excited about was Jarlin Cesara, the right-handed pitcher who is still only 18 years old, out of the Dominican Republic. He was the player that the Nationals got for including Bell. That was a big wrinkle there, was he was not going to be included unless Bell was going back the other way. He said that he actually could have the highest ceiling out of any of these players, which is easy to say for an 18-year-old, but he's already throwing 102 miles an hour. So that is pretty impressive. for a player that young who still has some growing, some strength building to do. It's going to be interesting to see what he turns out to do once he starts advancing through the minor leagues. But he's still in rookie ball right now, so he's got a long ways to go.
Were you surprised that we didn't see movement from Finnegan? We did not see Carl Edwards Jr. We did not see Steve Cishek. We didn't see Nelson Cruz. We didn't see Cesar Hernandez. I mean, I was surprised. I think maybe with some of the guys who have control left, so Finnegan and Edwards. I mean, still I'm pretty high now, but were they just not getting the offers they thought they were? I mean, it seemed like people wanted left-handed relief pitching, which they always do. But what was kind of the justification for that lack of movement on those guys?
Well, we heard from Rizzo at 4:00 with the deadline at 6, and then he
Right.
didn't meet with the media again after. So we didn't hear from him as to why they didn't make a move. He said he was still going back in to try and make more. So there were still, maybe potential deals on the table. I was surprised to see none of those guys moved. The Nationals have a really depleted bullpen this year in terms of just been having to work a lot. And I almost thought they would trade one of those guys just to get a fresh body into their bullpen because, a lot of these guys have been used the last few days and that seemed like something they might do. But ultimately, all of these guys are still there. The three bullpen arms you mentioned, Cesar Hernandez, Nelson Cruz, which, the fact that Nelson Cruz didn't find a new home. I think the Nationals certainly weren't expecting to have him on their roster come second. So that is going to be, the main attraction from a lineup standpoint in terms of pedigree the rest of the year. He hit fourth in that lineup yesterday. We will see if he continues to do so moving forward. But yeah, I was definitely surprised that we didn't see more movement. I think that you only seeing A-Ray Adrianza, which is interesting. Bizarre. He's the only other player who moves when he only played like 30 games in the majors this year. But the Braves knew what they were getting in him. They had him last year. So, and I also like the guy that got back from him, Trey Harris. I'm
very familiar with Trey Harris. He is Missouri Tiger. I actually got to cover Trey Harris when he was in
There you go.
He is, I'll tell you what, man, that guy has been undersold his entire career. Got to play in the SEC, but Missouri is not always considered, like, especially in baseball, not considered the SEC. Although they do put really good players in the majors, just not at a rate like the Arkansas of the world do. But he was an excellent player in the SEC, not a really high valued prospect coming in. Won that award, whatever it was, for their minor league, player of the year, whatever it was. This guy's been undersold his entire career. I definitely think he'll probably be up at the majors at some point in time, considering how bad the Nationals are, and would not be shocked if he has a little bit of success. That would not be surprising. And look, I'm actually glad he's gonna get an opportunity at some place where there is 100% a path to play, right?
Yeah.
And there's definitely some room to play. But yeah, there's a reason why they got Adrianza. I was just surprised that we did not see. I guess Nelson Cruz, there was really not a whole lot of market for him, right? I mean, he had a nice month and a half, I guess, stretch, but it looks like things have deteriorated a little bit for him to play.
He needed a hit for more power. I mean, even if he had the 600 OPS that he has right now, if he did it with 15 bombs, somebody would have taken a chance on him. I mean, look at Albert Pujols last year. The Dodgers were willing to take on Albert Pujols because, he was hitting below the Mendoza line, but, he was still, if he got enough playing time, able to hit for 15, 20 home runs a year.
Right.
We just haven't seen that kind of power from Nelson Cruz. It's been warning track power from him this year, which is just a little bit concerning.
And double play power too. Well, a lot of double play.
That's been a consistent theme for a long
time. So I mean, and also I was so funny. It was classic Mets last night with the DeGrom comes out, gets a run support, and then I was surprised to see Nogaseko in the game. It was like they were not. And they got some relievers there. I know they were in the market for some guys, but it's not like they don't have guys there. They got obviously Adam Ottavino, Edwin Diaz wouldn't come in that situation, but they got Drew Smith there. I was surprised to see Nogasek in the game, and then things kind of fell apart. And DeGrom pitched pretty well, I thought. And it was cool for the Nats, though. It was cool to see them get a win. In this kind of weird twilight zone. I was so odd, man. I was like looking in the dugout whenever they showed the guys returning from home runs, like searching for Juan Soto, knowing he was gone. I was like still searching the dugout for him, which was weird, but it was weird to see that. But it was nice to get a win. And obviously at the really cool moment with what's his name? Meneses. What, 10 years, 12 years in the minor leagues and hitting a home run last night?
Yeah, he 10 years in the minors plus 2 years in Dominican leagues. So 12 professional years leading up to this moment here. 30-year-old rookie getting his first big league game, and he hits for a home run. It was a pretty awesome moment. He went opposite field too.
Yeah.
It was pretty impressive. And I know during batting practice, he was hitting some bombs as well. So he's definitely got a little bit of sneaky pop. I'm interested to see with him and Josh Palacios, who has been doing very well down in AAA this year. If those guys get some playing time, who knows what maybe they could provide. And Yadiel Hernandez hiding in the rough. We'll see.
Yeah, another home run for him last night too, right? I
Yep.
mean, what's the plan at first base now? Is it going to be Meneses, or are we going to do this Riley Adams thing? Like,
Well, I think
he's hurt, isn't he?
Well, Adam, did he get hurt?
I might be wrong. Why was he not? Was he
He's
sending down
been
AAA?
raking in AAA.
Yeah, which was why I was
time.
like, why aren't we doing this now? It's right.
He's
It's
getting
time to
some
do
time
this.
at first base. Luke Voigt does enter into
That's
this
right. I forgot about that.
Equation here, especially with Nelson Cruz just being the DH. There's not really a lot of room for flexibility there. So Meneses and Palacios can both play in the outfield. I would expect Meneses, while he played first base yesterday, to be in that outfield equation from time to time. But I think Voigt, being a right-handed power bat, will probably face lefties. I don't know if he'll necessarily play every day, but I think that he is somebody that, with the Nationals lineup in the state that it is, they need some power, and certainly he'll fit that bill. So he's got 13 home runs on the year, 700 plus OPS. That makes him a pretty qualified hitter in the Nationals lineup. So we'll see what Davey Martinez has in store in terms of his plans for him.
Is Luke Voigt to you a player that's like, all right, let's see if we can get one half season out of him where he's hitting for a lot of power and movement at the deadline, like in the future? I mean, I think
he'll definitely be, especially if the Nationals are having another down year next year. I think a player that they could consider moving. They have 2.5 years of control. He was under the same parameters of a deal as Juan Soto. So you could move him this offseason. You can move him next year. I would imagine that they let him build some value in DC, maybe, get off to a hot start like he did in 2020, where you can then flip him at the deadline next year with 1.5 years of control. That could be pretty valuable. But it's, I would imagine that, they're going to try to give him as much playing time as possible just to give him opportunities, and the fact that they really don't have any first base prospects that can really push him for playing time. And next year he could be the DH as well.
So I want to see Riley Adams, man. I want to give that a try. I've been upset about the lack of playing time this year for Riley Adams.
I think he'll be back. At some point in the second half, the rosters expand by 2 in August, maybe, September. So maybe he gets to come up then, where they can justify carrying 3 catchers, but we will see.
So, with that September call, I mean, we think it's going to be Cade Cavalli, correct? It feels like that's going to be one of the,
all indications from the Nationals are that they are taking things slow with Cavalli, and Martinez about a month ago even said that he wouldn't be surprised if Cavalli didn't pitch in the majors this year. So I think it's on the table that,
man, you got to give him a couple reps. Come on. What are we doing? Nothing to play for.
We'll see. Jackson Tatro and Evan Lee are already on the IL, 60-day ILs, both of them. So it's unlikely we see very much of them the rest of the year. Are we really going to see Paolo Espino in the rotation the entire rest of the season, or are we going to try out one of these young guys? I think
Mackenzie Gore too, right? We feel like once he's cleared the injury, we're going to see him.
Well, apparently his injury might keep him out the rest of the year. I think we're going to get more clarity today. I know. But and Abrams was sent down to AAA to start, so we're not seeing really. Voigt is the only guy that we're going to see in this clubhouse. I think Gore will probably be there. Today, but at least on the field, we're only going to see Voigt for at least the early future, though I wouldn't be surprised if it's only a couple weeks before Abrams gets called up.
Yeah, I would too. All right, Matt, where can people find you and your work and all of its variety?
Yep, I'm on Twitter over at by Matt Weyrich. It's Weyrich. And you can check out all of my written work. Got lots of stuff from yesterday's moves, right? Davey Martinez comments, Mike Rizzo comments, my thoughts on their impending timeline, all over there at NBCSportsWashington.com.
Awesome. Matt Weyrich, NBC Sports Washington. We appreciate your time.
No problem, man.